All right, Johnny Nation, we are now joined by two very special friends of the podcast, Patrick Kane and Cole Latshaw, the dynamic duo behind the Red Storm Rapid Reaction podcast. Gentlemen, how are you? I'm sorry, I don't have a little theme song to play for you, Cole. My favorite thing, I watch every episode. If you guys aren't already, please get on YouTube, subscribe to the Red Storm Rapid Reaction podcast, hit that subscribe button, and then you can do what I do and laugh every single time that Pat hits that sound button to play the song because Cole laughs at him every single time. I don't know what it is. I don't know what the story is behind it, but it happens every single time without fail. Patrick Kane, Cole Latshaw, what's up, guys?
What's up,
It's
Dave?
also
What's up,
funny that
Frank?
it's also funny that it's like Pavlov's dog, where we both immediately go to drink water as soon as that sounder plays.
Cole doesn't want to admit it, but that was his seventh grade music project, and he had it saved in a file, and we needed something, so I grabbed it and ran with it. And without it, the podcast wouldn't be the same.
That's great. Is that a true story?
Cole?
No.
I'll see the head shake from Cole in case this makes audio only.
That's so funny. All right, guys, we all have been following this program nonstop since Rick Pitino has been hired here. We are 10 games into the season. St. John's is 7-3, just coming off a good win against Fordham, where the defense did respond after dropping that Boston College loss. My first thought to you guys, and I thought about this actually driving home from work today, is it feels like St. John's is in a very similar spot right now, 10 games into the season, than where they were at the start of this season, where a lot of people don't really know what this team is right now. You're not hearing people talk about this team right now. You're not hearing the prognosticators really talk about them as a tournament team. They're still like, we don't know. When is RJ Luis coming back? They're going to look different. I don't know what this team is. And by dropping 3 games in the non-conference, getting blown out by Michigan, dropping a tough one to Dayton, and then losing to Boston College, which nobody really thought you were going to lose, you have given a lot of people a lot of questions. And Cole, I'll start with you because I know you've got some hot takes in those chambers. What are your thoughts of St. John's kind of right now through 10 games, 7-3? Do you see where I'm coming from in regards to them being in that kind of unknown territory where they were before the season started, where there was a lot of hype going into the season, but then other people were like, I don't know. That's kind of where we are at. So Cole, what do you got for me?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head with one of the things that you said, where we're in such an unknown period. And I think one of the big reasons for that is we're missing RJ Luis, who we all know how glowingly Rick Pitino spoke of him and before the season started. Even though it's an insanely small sample size to only see him play for 16 minutes in that Holy Cross game, but his usage rate was 36%. So, I mean, if we can use that to judge what he potentially could mean to this team and on this offense, it seems like we could be missing such a big piece of what Rick wants to do. But yeah, I mean, as far as what we saw so far of the team so far in the non-conference slate, it's really tough to judge. We've seen great performances specifically against some lesser opponents. We saw a great performance against Utah. And then, like you mentioned, we saw them play against Michigan, a team that ultimately might not be that good in the Big Ten. And they just completely picked us apart. So I think a lot of us probably, if you would have put us against the wall and asked for preseason prediction, looking at that out of conference schedule, we probably would have thought a 2-loss team going into Big East play. So to sit there with 3 losses, and some of the losses, the Boston College loss isn't as terrible as maybe we originally would have thought. So we're still kind of sitting here not really knowing what we have and missing a player in RJ who's so important to what we might do. I think we'll see a lot more and understand a lot better once we start playing against the real nitty gritty Big East teams and get RJ back. But right now, I still don't know what we have on our team.
Pat, you have some coaching experience. We were just talking about your team starting off on a 4-1 this season, so congrats on that. But I'm curious from your lens, the defense has been such an issue with this team right now. how do you fix defense on the fly? How do you fix, you saw them be so much more active against Fordham. You saw them be so not with it against Boston College and being a step slow. So how do you try to fix it? Because I think that's obviously a big bugaboo for this team right now. Rick Pitino has talked about it nonstop. They're also fouling way too much on defense. How do you fix that? Because if they want to do anything in conference play, they're going to have to fix that right now by Wednesday.
Yeah, it's the defense certainly hasn't been great, hasn't been at the level you'd hope it to be, and I'm sure Coach Pitino knows that. I mean, he's said such throughout multiple post-game press conferences and in the posts. What I think you got to understand about full court pressure is it's often a long game, and he seems committed to sticking to that approach. And it might not look pretty now, but he might be willing to take a few lumps as the season goes on to get it where it needs to become Big East and postseason play. Has it been great? No, we've seen teams dismantle it. We've seen teams use their centers to bring it up against Joel, and it's kind of alleviated that pressure. But I think you got to take into consideration what Lewis might do for the pressure. We've had multiple times where Traore and Zuby are on the court together playing full court press. A guy like Lewis can really, harass a forward up the length of the court much more than those two can, I believe. So I think the addition of him could improve the defense as well as the offense, like Cole mentioned. And I think you got to be willing to kind of let it progress as the season goes. A lot of these guards, Dingle and Jenkins especially, who will be playing the majority of the minutes in the guard rotation, haven't been defensive stalwarts at their previous stops. And especially haven't had to do so against other teams' best players. So hopefully it continues to improve. I don't think we'll see Coach Pitino completely go away from it at any point. I think he's committed to it and seeing how that might take place. We've seen his teams in the past have a lot of success there, but it obviously has to improve. And I think, the reason some of our defensive inefficiencies in terms of defensive rebound, and we see such a good offensive rebounding team defensively, we're not as well there, and that has a lot to do with applying so much pressure. You're out on the perimeter contesting shots, looking for steals and deflections, and obviously you're not going to have all five guys in the paint focused on rebounding. So I think as we get better applying that pressure, we might be able to see our big men get more used to getting back in the paint and cleaning up the defensive glass. But you're right, the defense has been a bugaboo, has been a concern, and it will continue to be a concern if we don't get it straightened out.
I think, you hit on something there a little bit as far as rebounding goes. One of the most perplexing things for me in this slate is just how bad we are in the defensive glass versus how great we are in the offensive glass. I mean, we're a decent shooting team, so it's not that there's a ton of missed shots or anything like that. We're middle of the pack, 50% or so in effective field goal percentage. Number 2 in the country in offensive rebounding percentage, 248th in the country in giving up offensive rebound percentage. So, it's very shocking and perplexing, and something you just don't see too often, where a team is only good at rebounding on one end of the floor. But that's the situation we find ourselves in right now, and I think we do need to find a way to improve on that, as well as defending without fouling, which has been a common theme and a refrain from Coach Walsh and Coach Pitino and press conferences on the podcast, etc.
Frank, we before the season said 9-2, and we even leaned to 10-1 non-conference. Now, obviously, that was quite ambitious, clearly, but 9-2 was definitely, I think, fair. You dropped 3 already. You got Hofstra coming up to finish up the non-conference. Would the word disappointing be fair to categorize this non-conference portion of Rick Pitino's first year? I'm curious what all 3 of you have to say, but especially because Frank, you and I, we put it out there. We said 10-1 is what we were, we thought was a real possibility, and 9-2 was kind of the safe play. And now you got a third one in there. So do you think disappointing is fair to use it? I don't want to say anything more than that, because I think that's a little crazy. There's a lot of season left, but to drop 3 in the non-conference portion.
I think that's definitely a fair assessment. I do think it is disappointing, and it's not just being 7-3, hopefully get to 8-3 in non-conference. It's a matter of also the way we got there, right? You got run off your home court on the opening night at MSG of the Pitino era. Pitino's first return to MSG as our head coach. You got run off the floor by that Michigan team, and that loss just keeps looking worse and worse. And honestly, by the end of the year, BC might be a better loss than Michigan because
Oh
I,
my
I
God.
I mean, I've seen a lot more. I saw a lot more from BC that I liked than what I've seen from Michigan after they played us. And I think Michigan was just a really bad matchup for us with the speed of their guards, especially that early in the season when we, didn't really know yet that was going to be a weakness. And, we're still very early in our defensive development. So, that loss hurts. And, when you're standing here a month later from it, you look back, say, that's a game you got to win. We all assumed one of the losses would be Houston in Charleston. We didn't get there. We dropped it to Dayton instead. And then of course BC, that's a game that was there for the taking. The game we should have won. A game we had a 10-point lead with 7 minutes to go, and we blew it. And frankly, I do think we're a better team than Boston College. We just didn't show it. The defense didn't show up that game, and so I think disappointing is very very apt. And I think the other word that just comes to my mind is unpredictable / uneven. We've had a lot of uneven performances, and these schedules are unpredictable. I mean, I think Boston College, Cole said, better than everybody expected. Utah, we thought would be a good matchup. They're 35 in Ken Palm right now. They'll probably end up, in the top 30 and a quad or top 50, I guess, in neutral court. So a quad one win for us, or is it top 70? It might be top 70 even on a neutral floor. And they'll be probably top 30, top 40 team all year in the metrics. So that's a really good win. And we came out and did that a day after we dropped one to Dayton, who is, ranked similarly in the metrics to the extent you buy into those things, and who I think, probably not quite as good a team as Utah, but still, a quality opponent. And those are the best two teams on our schedule, which, if we said that in early November before we tipped off, I don't think anybody would have believed me.
Yeah, piggybacking on what Frank was saying, I think when we're talking whether it's disappointing or not, it's what were you guys originally saying? Were you originally anticipating at 10-1 or 9-2? You were probably saying, "Hey, we get to that final night and lose to Houston, or maybe one of that tough road game against West Virginia, who we thought would have more of their transfers available and be a better team than they currently were when we played them." And then who did we ultimately lose to? That Utah team, like Frank just said, like that might end up being a great win for us, but I don't think we envisioned playing Utah. We envisioned beating Dayton and playing Houston and losing to them. We envisioned beating Boston College. We envisioned Michigan being a better team than they are and beating them, not getting run off our court and losing to them and having them ultimately not be a very good loss. So that's my concern, is losing to a team like Boston College if they perform poorly in the ACC, and losing to a team like Michigan if they perform poorly in the Big Ten. What does that ultimately do to our resume at the end of the year?
I think I would stop short of anything as extremely disappointing, but I think fairly disappointing is very fair. I know I'm not quite the hot take guy, but it's tough. College basketball preseason, and a lot of stuff happens that's not easy to predict. I mean, you look at some of the Big East teams like Creighton, lost some games they shouldn't have lost. Marquette, tight one against St. Thomas. Things happen, and you don't always come out on top. You got to keep in perspective the other team and the other coach, other players are always out there trying to do the exact same things you are, and a couple breaks go the other way, and you're looking at a loss. I don't think there's much to be ecstatic about, with our team. I think at the same time, there's no reason to throw the balls away and declare this season without having potential to go far in the postseason. I think a lot can still happen. I think we have a great coach, and with that comes the potential to improve throughout the season. I think we've got talent in the spots we need talent. I do think we need some work. Obviously, we talked about defensively and just figuring out how to play more together on offense and getting the best guys the best shots at the right time. I'm by no means not looking forward to the Big East season. I think we get off to the right start, and a lot of this stuff can be forgotten, and before you know it, you get a couple wins in a row and right back to thinking, we're cruising on our way to the NCAA tournament. So a lot can still happen. I am still very much excited and looking forward to Xavier tomorrow night, or Wednesday night. I'm sorry.
And so I think what you said there is important. And anybody who's listening to this, just take a second here, because there's a lot of hot takes flying on social media. There's a lot of people that have gone a little bit too extreme. People thinking that Rick Pitino's forgotten how to coach or anything crazy like that. Perhaps this is our fault as a fan base. Perhaps we set the bar too high. And I think that what a lot of people are starting to realize is it's not just coach speak when Rick Pitino says this is going to take time. Now, 10 games into the season, you kind of want to stop hearing that. Frank and I just talked about that in regards to wrapping up Fordham. Rick Pitino said that in his press conference again. So you kind of want to stop hearing about that. You want to see the results. And, the truth is we perhaps thought this was going to be a lot easier than it was, showing to be. Nobody penciled in RJ Luis having an injury and being such a key piece to what this roster is going to be. I don't think people penciled in having to move Jordan Dingle to the second unit in order to change the dynamic of what you're getting from the bench and trying to look for your bench scoring. I think we all thought Simeon Wilcher and Brady Dunlap would be a little further along offensively and maybe defensively, but certainly offensively than when they are now. The Zuby Ejiofor praise that we kept hearing in the preseason made you think that he was going to beat out Joel Soriano in the starting lineup. Meanwhile, Joel Soriano looks like a better player than he did even last year. He's looking like one of the best big men in the country. These were the expectations and the hype that we kind of built up, and it comes with being a fan. It comes with being, people that cover the program and talk about this team day in and day out. So you have to take a step back. But like Pat said, Big East play is here. This is where you start making your donuts. This is where you start to prove what kind of team you are. And you get Xavier and Sean Miller at home at Carnesecca Arena, a team that is down two of their best guys. You need to win. You need to start making those statements and start getting rid of the negative feelings that came from the Boston College loss and those 3 losses that you had. Start making statements in the positive light. Start giving people a reason to have that hype back. Like Pat said, you rattle off a few of these. You remember last year when you put a few of those together and then you went into that Villanova game at Madison Square Garden and how much hype there was behind that game to thinking that, all right, you're going to put a few of these together and start getting into the NCAA picture. Well, it's not that far into the Big East schedule yet, but you have the opportunity to start that and start creating momentum. And I think that you have a fortunate opportunity against a Xavier team that's a little bit down on their luck right now. You got to watch out for Quincy Olivari, but everybody else, I think you're catching them at a good time. And I think you have a chance, St. John's does, to start Big East play on the right foot.
Does anyone know if the Xavier game will be mic'd up like it was last year? We got to see Sean Miller versus Mike Anderson in a battle of wits. I don't know if you could call it that. A little bit lopsided, but I'd love to see it this year with Pitino and sweaty Sean Miller.
Yeah, it would be very entertaining this year. And, I'll always have a fond memory of that Xavier game just because I think it was kind of a turning point in getting away from Mike Anderson. So, that was it was entertaining. And I don't think I've ever been so excited to come back and rewatch the tape of a loss after leaving Carnesecca or MSG as I was that evening.
I think I watched it like 3 times.
Of course, I had everybody in my text messages and my DMs and my mentions that night as I'm sitting there telling me, "Oh my God, Frank, it's so bad on the TV."
If it wasn't brutal
I'll
enough on the sidelines, and then they brought the cameras into the pregame locker room for halftime, it was just as bad. It was worse. I mean, there was just nothing going on. And I hate criticizing coaches for that type of stuff, but that really shed a poor light on the program that night and Coach Anderson. 100%.
And I think we're joking about it and having a good laugh about it, but I think it's a valuable perspective, right? That's where we were at this time last year, watching our coach, flail about and not really do much coaching, and having no hope for the rest of the season, really, to having Pitino and trusting that things are improving and heading in the right direction, heading into conference play. So, I think that's important to take stock of.
So I'm curious, Pat, Cole, Frank, what's been your biggest takeaway from the non-conference portion and what this team has looked like? If you could plant your flag on 1 or 2 things that you've really taken away from this team and how they've looked and how they've played, positive, negative, whatever, what have been your biggest and firmest takeaways?
I'll go ahead and start. My biggest concern, or it's a potential for us to get better, would be our inability to get to the free throw line so far this year. And coming into the season, I thought that'd be a strength with the guys we brought in the fold. couple of reasons I think we're struggling at that is one, Jenkins, who leads the team in field goal attempts for starters. I think that's got to stop. Secondly, he doesn't get to the line much at all. Not a guy that gets to the rim and gets contact. I do think he's taken a little bit too much criticism at this point, but I understand his flaws completely. And then a few guys, Dingle last year, 6 a game. This year, he's only going 1.8 free throw attempts a game. So that's a big drop off. And in terms of per 40 minutes, it was 7.1 last year to 2.5 this year. So not getting to the rim, getting to the line nearly as much as he was last year. Glenn Taylor also 6.5 attempts last year, 2.9 this year per 40. So another guy, two guys, in the starting lineup for the majority of the games, not getting there, not even 50% of them many times as they got a season ago. And I think that is a big part of our inability to hold leads. Those free throws in the second half play a big part in terms of trickling points when you're not hitting your shots, in terms of keeping teams at bay. And as a team right now, we're taking 15.7 free throws. Opponents are taking 21.3. That's over 5.5 attempts difference, and a good team's going to make 4 of those. That's 4 points just from the free throw line. So I think if we can make a concerted effort getting our guards going towards the basket, most importantly, Dingle being aggressive going to the basket, we can open up some things for our other players and continue to get some easy points in the second halves and hopefully stretch those leads from 3 to 4 to 6 or 7.
Pat, I love that you mentioned that because I've been harping on that. Also, I think it's such an important part of the offense. And, Frank, you and I were just talking about Fordham scored 41% of their points from the free throw line in the last game. Now, obviously, it doesn't hurt when, you're up by 22, but they're getting to the line an astronomical clip. But that goes back to the other problem that St. John's is facing, and that they're fouling way too much. But on the other end, they're not being aggressive enough going to the paint. Pat, you said something also that you think that Jenkins should not be the guy that's leading the team in field goal attempts. Part of me is like, I get it because he's comfortable in the Pitino offense. He's the head of the snake in regards to being the point guard. But, and I think I know what you're going to say, who do you think should be leading the team in field goal attempts?
I think it should be Joel. And I think you could make a good case for Jenkins being fourth, behind Ledlum and Dingle in terms of field goal attempts, or in some equal parts, those 3 guys. But I think we need to make a concerted effort at getting Joel touches. And we've done pretty good. It's not like he's not getting shots, but
Right.
I think he's averaging 15 shot attempts per 40. Jenkins has averaged 17. And then Dingle is right above Soriano as well. But I think Soriano has proven to be a capable passer. He sucks the defense in. He's not a terrible free throw shooter. I mean, he can hit it above 70% on a pretty consistent basis. So the more you feed him, I think the better things will happen, not just for him, but for the other guys around him.
And I think, just to put a little bit of color on it, the Fordham free throws, we already recapped the Fordham game, but this is how many free throws we gave them and how well above their average they hit them at. Coming into the game, they were 65% on the season, and it was good for like 330th in the country or something like that in free throw percentage. Now they're all the way up to 68.9%, which is good for 104th in the country. So we single-handedly boosted them like 200 spots in free throw percentage by giving them so many. And then, of course, they had to make them at a better clip than they had previously, and they did. But that's just a funny stat. And I think, it's a great point. That's definitely one of the takeaways I've had as well, as far as, free throws on both ends. We got to learn how to defend without fouling. The two really bad losses, and I'll call the 2 really bad losses, Dayton and BC, because both games I think were there for the taking. Both those games, it just felt like we tripped down. We were fouling, on defense. We were fouling. And if they were not getting the basket, they were getting to the line every time. And so, Big East teams are going to punish us for that. We're not going to face any more Fordhams that might shoot 65% from the line. Big East player, everybody's going to shoot 75% or better from the line. So we need to be better about getting there. And I think, getting Joel more touches down low will result in some more fouling. Definitely getting to the rim more with Dingle and taking some of those away from Jenkins, who loves that mid-range game and perimeter game, and get those touches into the paint, be it driving or Joel or Ledlum or whatever. Zuby. So those would be some of my takeaways. I think the other thing is just self-inflicted wounds. We're really bad at non-steal turnover percentage, so we're those are basically all self-inflicted wounds, throwing the ball away, traveling, charges, whatever. So, I think we need to be a little bit better at taking care of the ball. We've definitely got, a pretty mediocre steal percentage too. So we're giving the ball away, they're taking it away. And both of those facets, I think, is something that we need to improve on offense. Which, I raise the offense because, we talk about the defense at length, and that's the obvious side. Figure I'll point out something a little less obvious that's been irking me.
Yeah, I think both Pat and Frank touched on making Joel a little bit even more of a focal point of the offense. And I think everyone always glows about Rick Pitino's ability to develop players. And I think it's been really, truly amazing to see Joel take even another step from last year to this year. He's looked absolutely tremendous. 18, 10 and a half rebounds. I gave him a little knock about his ability to alter shots on our podcast, Pat, maybe like 4 weeks ago or so. And since then, I think he's completely proven me to be an idiot. He's averaging like almost 2 blocks a game. He's just absolutely stepped up since Rick has worked with him and cutting his body fat. And I think El Capitan deserves a ton of praise for how he's played so far this season. And I'm excited to see how he does in the Big East. I know, Frank.
I'm glad you wait. Sorry to interrupt your flow there, Cole. But I'm glad you said that because Dave and I, we're good friends. We text, we talk about the games all together, and sometimes I wonder if him and I just have like a feedback loop where we're encouraging people or group things. So to hear that we're not the only ones who think that a guy who averaged a double last year and was top 5 in the country in double doubles still managed to elevate his game this year, and he has.
Yeah.
And he's done it by being better at the things he was good at last year, but also by adding these new developments in blocking shots or assists or the 3-point shot, whatever the case may be. And that I think is a huge testament to Rick, as well as the the hard work that Joel did at Rick's insistence.
And it seems like such a cliche thing to say, but I really do feel like the game has slowed down for him. Like he knows he can get to his spots. He's never in a rush. He stays in good position. He's always around the basketball. Um, his rebounding couldn't go up. That's about the only thing that hasn't improved. It's about just where it was last year. But when you average 12 rebounds a game, there's really no place to go up. Points, blocks, field goal percentage, all up. And he just played phenomenal.
One of the things I've really noticed with Joel is how comfortable he looks out there. Last year, one of the big things that I felt is that even though he had such a good season, I think he felt there was a lot of pressure on him to do a lot of the heavy lifting, and he was pressing. And there were some times that he would have some off nights and he would start forcing some shots. I don't think we've seen that this year. I think we've seen him really play within himself. He looks comfortable with that hook shot. His mid range, I think, has gotten even better. And obviously, the 3-point shot has become a weapon, and he looks confident shooting it. It looks really good. This doesn't look like, a baby deer out there, just trying to shoot for the first time. He looks like he's got a confident stroke. And I was telling Frank this recently. This guy looks like an NBA center. This looks like he's playing his way into that type of a role. He's not this stagnant big man like we look at Zach Edey. He's not this slow big man. I think that there's a pro future for Joel Soriano, especially if this 3-point shot and the mid range continues to improve like this. And, maybe that's a little bit of bias, but he looks tremendous. He looks better than he did last year, and he looked awesome last year. So definitely something I'd love to see from Joel. I want to get your guys' thoughts as Big East play is here. What do you want to see from St. John's over the next 5 games? Big East only. We're gonna chalk up Hofstra hopefully as a win. So we're gonna go Big East. Xavier at UConn, Butler at Villanova, and Providence. Those are your 5 first games for St. John's. I'll start with you, Pat. What do you want to see from St. John's? You can give me a record. You can give me what you actually want to see the team look like. Take it wherever you want to go.
I think with Big East play, the key is always hold and serve at home, right? You want to take advantage of your home games and then get an advantage to get some sweeps on the road. So I'd start with those 3 home games. You said it was Xavier, Butler, and Providence, correct? You hope to win all 3 of those games. I think you'll be at least a slight favorite in all of them. Providence has looked good. Butler's looked good. We know about the return game for Posh Alexander. He'll be hyped up for that one. But I think you've got a great chance, and you should go into those 3 games expecting to win. If you do that, you can hopefully sneak away with one of the two other ones at Villanova, at UConn. Obviously, tough places to play, but St. John's won one in UConn last year, so we know it's not out of question to go in there and steal a win. I think 3-2 would be good. 4-1 would be great. 2-3 you could rebound from, but obviously you put yourself in a hole. And there's a couple stretches of Big East play where we might be going 2-4 in a 6-game span. I know that the middle of it is pretty brutal, so you don't want to jump into put yourself in a deep hole like St. John's has so often done in the first 5 games of conference. Take it one at a time. Beat Xavier, put a nice chip in your pocket, then go to UConn and work on from there. I'd like to see a consistent starting lineup, a consistent approach for these 5 games. I know Coach Pitino has said over and over again, starters don't matter to him. Coaches say a bunch of things. I'm not sure if he means it 100%. I think, as a player, it matters to the players. As a group, I think it matters to the group. So I'd like to see some more consistency there in terms of the starting lineup. And then hopefully, after 5 games, we're looking at a much more clear picture and then an obvious path to where we can make the tournament from.
All right, I'll go next, I guess. I think much the same. I think, these first 5 games, you gotta get 3 wins. You gotta hold serve at home. And then, once you get past holding serve at home, that's when you start to look at where are your pickup opportunities. I think Villanova is one of those opportunities. I mean, they've been wildly inconsistent. You could catch them on an off night. They've done everything from, beat a top 30 opponent to lose to a bottom 200 opponent. So I think that they're very capable of laying an egg. I think we matched up pretty well with them. I think, Joel inside that game could have a monster game. I think he could have a monster game Wednesday against Xavier too. I think these are two teams that don't have much size up front, or at least not size that scares Joel Soriano. I don't think Joel Soriano is going to be locked down by Tyler Burton or Lance Ware at Nova, and Lord knows Xavier's front court's been torn to shreds with the injury to Fremantle and everything else. So, for my money, I think that's one of those ones that you circle, maybe 5 or 6 road games that you can circle and, in the middle of the standings and say, these are the teams that we should, obviously DePaul, Georgetown, you got to go out and beat them, sweep them. Those 5 or 6 teams in the middle of Big East, that's where you got to try to find a couple more road wins. And I think Villanova is definitely a good possibility for that one. So I would really like to see 4-1. I'll be fine with 3-2. And then, we'll have one more opportunities in those sort of, middle of the pack road games to get the wins we need.
Yeah, Pat mentioned not wanting to dig ourselves a hole. And I think, unfortunately, based on how we've played out of conference and how the Big East has performed as a whole out of conference, that we've kind of already are stuck in a hole and we need to dig ourselves out of that. I think going forward, we have 10 quad 1 opportunities in Big East play, be the home and aways with Marquette, UConn, and Creighton, and then road games, Nova, Butler, Providence, and Xavier. So I think looking at these first 5, like both of the guys said, I would love to see us hold serve at home and take all 3 at home. Maybe 2 of 3 is more realistic. But thinking about having to build our resume for March Madness, I think we really need to start accumulating some quad 1 wins. I think that Utah game, as Frank had mentioned earlier, will probably stick in that Q1 being a neutral court. But you're going to have to start picking up some of these road conference games. At UConn, obviously, would be a tough task. They look like world beaters so far. At Nova jumps out to me as a possible opportunity for a good Q1 win. That would be great to get early in the slate and conference play. They'll also have the added advantage of having a drunk Cole Latshaw in attendance there. So, I'll be duking it up with all the mainline Philly people. So that'll help them out. But in all seriousness, I think we have to start worrying about what our resume is going to look like at the end of the tournament. If we go maybe 12-8, without thinking about how we could perform in the Big East tournament, but going maybe 12-8 in conference, if you're not getting any wins over UConn, Creighton, Marquette, then it's really going to be important to pick up some of these other road games, the Nova, the Butler, the Providence, and the Xavier road games to build up some of those Q1 wins. So.
And I'm a little more sanguine on it than you are as far as what games we do or don't need to win. I think if you win 12 Big East games and you beat Hofstra, you get the 20 wins overall in the regular season. I think that's basically a lock for the tournament. I think even if you lose all 6 to the top 3 guys and you get to 12 wins anyway, you're going to have enough of a resume that you're a lock. You might not get as high a seed as you would want without those quality wins, but you're definitely making the tournament if you get 12 big. If we get to 12 Big
You're
East wins,
at 20, at 12-8 in Big East without all
100%.
6 of those games. But you guys are saying
100%.
not even a bubble team. You're not even a bubble team. You think
No way. No way.
absolute lock. We are
loss on the first night of the Big East tournament, so 20 wins, and you think
we are 60. We're 60
100%.
something. We're 60 something in the metrics now, and there's still a lot of room to move a lot with each win. Especially, if you get to 12 wins without beating the top 6 at all, you're going to have a few road wins in the middle that are going to be really good and really boost your metrics. So I think the metrics will be good enough, and I think you'll be like a 9 seed maybe, or 10 seed at worst if you're in that scenario.
I believe historically, since this has started to get weighed, and I have to double check with my metrics guru Vino Chani, but if you get to 10 in the Big East, the chances of you missing, I think, has happened once. So your 10 is your magic number. At this point, you want to be comfortably in. That's why the number is 11, I think. If you get to 12, there's no question about it. You're sitting comfortable on Selection Sunday, but we have to pump the brakes. We are way too far away from Selection Sunday. Here's the thing that I'm going to cap this off with and kind of wrap a bow on it. We're talking about 3-2 through the first 5. You want to start quick. St. John's has historically not started quick in Big East play. Why I think you have the potential, a realistic shot at 4-1 here, is because by the time you get to that Villanova game, which I think is so critical here, RJ Luis is back. RJ Luis being back, Villanova catching them early, and they're not a deep team either. These are the things that you got to kind of factor in. You're catching some of these teams a little bit early. Now, at UConn, obviously, really tough. You got to chalk that up as a loss. But as Cole said, you have a chance to steal one. You have to. Good teams steal games. St. John's is in that position where they are now able to become stealers of these games. These aren't like, oh, no chance. I think St. John's has a chance against most of these guys. Providence at Madison Square Garden, that's a winnable game. You're probably a 2-point favorite in that game. Let's see how things go. Villanova on the road, yeah, tough game, but you have a shot. This is what you have to do. If you want your season to go the way that we've been talking about in year 1 against Rick Pitino, you have to take these wins. And I don't think that this is stealing a win. This is a game that a good team who is trying to get to the NCAA tournament wins. If you have Rick Pitino, you have a senior-laden team, win these games. Make statements, win these games. That's what it comes down to. And I think that, yes, there's a lot of good faith still to be won. I think a lot of the fan base might be a little bit down right now. That's fine. I understand. 3 losses in the non-conference. It starts Wednesday against Xavier. It starts now. Big East play is here. You're going to have, I feel so much more confident in that Villanova game now because drunk Cole Latshaw is going to be there. I don't even know if I need St. John's to show up.
I might have to get drunk and show up too. Me and Cole could run roughshod over these country club mainlining bastards.
God bless those fans
this
in there
is
this is
a
night.
PG program. My apologies. I get 1 per episode.
Oh man. All right. Thank you so much. If you are not doing so already, please make your way to Apple, Spotify, and YouTube and subscribe to the Red Storm Rapid Reaction Podcast with Pat Kane and Cole Latshaw, the absolute best friends of the program. And for Frank and myself, you already know the games are about to begin. Big East season is here. It is time for the part of the schedule that we've all been waiting for. Big East play starts Tuesday. St. John's basketball Big East play starts Wednesday. Let's go. Carneseca Arena. I'll see you there. It's a whiteout. Everybody wear white. If you're home, wear white. Let's go. It's time for St. John's to start making statements, start making noise, and the season starts now. For Cole Latshaw, for Pat Kane of the Red Storm Rapid Reaction Podcast, Frank Molfetta, and myself, thank you, Johnny Nation, for listening. We will catch you next time.